Welcome to the Ronan Bell Show. This conversation is going to kick off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mr. Dabbundo, it is a pleasure having you on the show today, my guy. How have you been?
I've been good. Graduating college shortly, May 23rd. So that's quickly approaching, and I'm trying not to think about it, but trying to figure out exactly what's next too.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're going to Syracuse. So how was that going through school during this, pandemic? Like your senior year kind of gets, thrown to the wayside, really.
It's definitely been a challenge for everybody. I think it's not just me, obviously. A lot of people have had different family losses and economic hardship and whatnot, and going to school and trying to focus on school. For me, it's been a social thing. I'm extremely extroverted. I love being around people. When I'm like alone, I kind of don't know what to do with myself. So I try to keep busy by seeing people, and you're not supposed to see people during the pandemic. So it's been trying to kind of navigate that. That's been really challenging. And it's gotten better for sure. I'm fully vaccinated now. I have been for almost a month. I've been out more for sure, spending more time with my friends and close people at school. So it's been really better, but it was really tough, especially the fall semester when the weather got bad.
Oh, of course. Yeah. In the wintertime, like you can't go out at all in normal life in general. Like it's snowing outside. You don't want to go walk, and you're going to Syracuse, man. It's just like Penn State, snowy and extremely cold, and you don't want to go outside. And you don't want to do anything but, lay in bed. But yeah, dude, I like how you put it in perspective though a little bit. Like obviously I'm like a college kid. It's not the end of the world that I'm not going to see my friends. Like there's been way worse out there. Like if I throw, my college experience, I got 2.5 really good years. I mean, is what it is at this point. We can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, and there still were good things. We were just talking about this. I was able to cover the NCAA tournament, the ACC tournament. So I did a little bit of traveling. I went to go see some friends at other schools before our semester started because they had pushed it back to February because of COVID. So in January, I was like, all right, I'm out. I went to see some friends in Washington and Pittsburgh. So it was nice to get around and see people that I wouldn't normally see, and try to force yourself to make plans and find something to do so you're not just sitting on your couch or, doing nothing.
Oh yeah, man. So how was it going to like the tournament and everything? Obviously you get to talk to some pretty cool people. We'll get into that in a little bit, but how was it going to the tournament?
It was a blast. We were originally didn't think Syracuse was going to make it. Most of the season they struggled. They were inconsistent. They were on the outside of the bubble, and they got hot at the end of the season. They won a couple of big games, and so we went to Greensboro, and they played one of their best games of the season at the ACC tournament. They almost beat Virginia. It was a great buzzer beater by Virginia. It was a hell of a game. Drove back, and so a week later we're like, all right, I guess we're going to Indy. So I only packed clothes for one weekend. I was like, they might win a game. Maybe they'll win 2, but like probably not. So I'm not going to bring all these extra clothes. And we drove. So my buddy Danny, one of my colleagues at the newspaper, we drove to Indy about 9.5 hours. We split it up, and then we were there for a weekend. They won both games. And all of a sudden we're like, all right, I guess we're here for the week. So we went down to Indiana with one of his friends. We stayed with them for the week. And then we came back to Indy, which is about an hour away, the weekend of the Sweet 16. And it was just such a buzz. The reporting aside, like we were busy most of the weekend. Like we weren't like, just sitting around and whatever. But when you were, in a restaurant or whatnot, there were so many people from all over the country, fans from Grand Canyon to Gonzaga to Rutgers to, Florida. You saw fans from everywhere, and it was really awesome that everybody was kind of coming together for a big event, because it feels like that hasn't happened in so long. So it was fun. It was a buzz in Indy, and I got to explore the city a little bit. I'm a Colts fan, so I went to the Peyton statue I hadn't seen yet. So it was a lot of fun, and then drove back after they got beat by Houston. So it was fun. It was worth it, and really the highlight of my senior year.
Oh, I can imagine, man. I mean, you go and it was like an exclusive NCAA tournament. And this isn't just like run-of-the-mill March Madness that happens every year. No, there was minimal amount of people in there, and you got lucky and you were able to get your way in there. So I'm sure it was like, a little private basketball game every time that you went in. Because what was there? Maybe like couple, maybe 1,000 people in total in the arena.
Yeah. So Syracuse played their third game at Hinkle, which is like the iconic Butler Gym, the movie Hoosiers, Hinkle Fieldhouse. There was about 3,000 people in total. And so tickets were tough to secure. But, as media, we were very lucky in that sense, and privileged to be able to cover the games. And then when they played in the Bankers Life Fieldhouse, which is the Indiana Pacers arena, there was probably about 3,000 or 4,000 in there. And it's such a bigger arena that it feels almost empty, but having crowds. Syracuse played all of its home games behind closed doors. They went on the road a couple times. There were fans, but no more than a couple hundred. So it was really, until the AC tournament, there weren't a lot of fans. And so, now you finally were able to see, what a difference it makes to a game. And it is noticeable.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It especially going from no one to at least something. I mean, it hasn't been that way in like a year. And sports is obviously a big part of a lot of people's lives, and especially when you start off. Because when did you start doing the RCTV? Was that your sophomore year in high school?
Sophomore year. I kind of broke into a little bit of writing, covering some high school hoops in Philadelphia, and then did some broadcasts, mostly junior and senior year though. The famous game that everybody remembers was 2016, which was February 9th, 2016, which was the PAC championship, and Springford played Perk Valley, and very controversial ending. And where our box was, we're right above the student sections, and the student sections are screaming so loud that I can't hear Coach Dave Caldwell, who's calling the game with me, and I'm just yelling, and I don't even realize it, but I'm yelling. And that's something that, you can't really replicate without fans. It would have been very different. Obviously, fans running onto the court decided the championship, which is ridiculous to look back on now. But fans, are what make sports in so many different ways, and having them back made a huge difference in the game.
I was talking to Jaws on the podcast, and he still says they won that championship. I'm just saying, man.
I'll have to agree with him.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
they won.
It was absurd. Yeah, Jaws is having a hell of a career up at Lafayette. So,
man, look at that guy go. Not like who would have thought, but man, it's awesome to see him. Just like a guy from middle of nowhere. I mean, dude, we're from the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. Do you see that
there are further places than Royersford and Collegeville, but yes. Yes, I saw the Saturday Night Live skit.
I was just going to bring that up, man. And shout out to Royersford for going Saturday Night Live. I never thought we'd make it there, but anyway. So when you started doing these, announcing and writing and everything, was there anything that you were really going off of when you started, or is it just more that creative side of your brain that kind of took over and started writing in that sense?
I've always been just an information nerd in a lot of ways. So when I was a kid and really young, 9, 10, 11, I would open up the Philly Inquirer sports page and I would just read all the stats and the peak era Phillies when they were really good. I would memorize all the batting averages of all the best players. And so it really comes down to just loving information and having things to talk about. And so in high school, I was okay, there's this really great crop of Philly basketball high school talent, and there's so much to learn. I want to learn about it. I want to write about it. I want to help other people learn and inform them. And so I was okay, I'm going to write. I'm going to broadcast. It's just a lot of fun to be around sports, and that's kind of my first true love. So I would say that it comes down to my love of information and knowing things, and then being able to pass that along to others. I think that's a really important thing, not only just skill to have, but important thing in our society is, keeping people informed. And in the case of sports, it's entertainment. And so keeping people on the up. And when you're in high school and you're reporting on other high schoolers, it's fun because, you're talking to kids who are your age, you're not writing hit pieces, or you don't have to even be negative. You're just this is a high school athlete, their parents will text you after the story comes out, thanking you for the publicity. And it's no problem. Or, thanks for this and that. Thanks for the coverage. Thanks for keeping us updated on Twitter when we don't know who's winning the game. All those things make you feel good. And so that's part of the reason I got into writing. And then broadcasting, same thing. I can't tell you, a couple of years ago, Matt Ganias texted or snapped, or Matt Ganias and his girlfriend were rewatching that crazy PAC game and sent me the video, and you can see they're reliving these memories. And my call, which was pretty bad from broadcast standards, but became iconic in that way, is something people remember, and it's kind of fun.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like these monumental moments are Ray. I was just talking to Ray on the last podcast that I did, and he was saying that how without announcers and everything, it would be really weird to watch sports because it's that initial human interaction that people are drawn to, like when people are announcing the game. And then when you add these crazy moments and then the announcers also feeling the vibrations in the air and the vibe in the air, it makes this incredible compilation of everything like coming together and just like going at through these people's ears, watching it on television, like being a fan, hearing the announcer, whatever it may be. And that's what really adds to that sports environment between the fans, the announcers, the athletes, just the tempo of the game. And that's what fully makes these sporting events really events and entertainment.
100%. And yeah, you ever tried muting a game and like trying to really get into it and watch it if it's like close late? You can't hear the fans, you can't hear the broadcast. You're just watching it play out, and it's not the same. And so that's what we try to add, and even a good writer. If you're a good writer, you make the person feel like they're at the game themselves. You miss the game, you want to read about it. They make you think about something you hadn't thought about. They help you see something you didn't see or understand something you didn't understand. Like all of that is things we're trying to do. And if it's done well, it can really add to the experience.
Oh yeah, 100%. So, Dabbundo, I gotta ask you a question. You got to talk to kind of a living legend in the basketball world a lot. So, what was it like, having these conversations with Jim Boeheim? Was that cool for you?
Yeah, it's definitely a cool experience. Jim, we were on Zoom for actually every press conference this year, and so that is definitely not the same as being in person. But Jim is notorious in a way, for good or bad reasons, for his interactions with the media. He's the kind of guy who isn't going to take anything sitting down and just be the gracious guy. He will fire back, and which is in his right to do. And so we had a couple of run-ins. I mean, he kind of went viral when he attacked another reporter who's a friend of mine for his height and saying that questioning his coaching decision, saying this guy's 5'2", he's never played basketball before. And he's telling me, who's been coaching for 45 years, how to coach a team. Okay, well, maybe that's over the line, but it is how he is. And that's just part of being on this beat that you have to kind of live with and understand. And in the end, he does give good information in press conferences. He's a very good quote. He's very honest. And so you really appreciate that as a reporter. You'd rather do that than have somebody who's just going to give you boring, canned answers all the time. And you're just like, oh, okay, whatever. And then so at the end of the season, last question of the entire year actually was after the Houston loss. I asked about one player and why he took him out with 2 minutes left in the half and how they went on a 10-0 run right after the other team. And he got mad and he came after me a little bit, took a run at me. And you're like, okay, he's saying things that aren't really true, saying I said they wouldn't make the NIT, which I never wrote or said or tweeted. And so you're just like, all right, because the problem is that it then goes viral on Twitter. And then you got people from both sides. One side is defending you, the other side is defending Boeheim, and you're just like, it doesn't really help anybody. But in the end, he did answer the question. He said, he was tired, he was out of gas, we had to get him out. It's not why we lost the game, which it's a fair answer. So there's give and take, but you just kind of have to put aside the fact that he is a legendary Hall of Fame coach when you're talking to him, because if you're level with him and you're honest with him, obviously you're respectful, but if you're level and honest with him, like he understands, he's been doing media for a very long time. Like he understands how this works and what our role is. And so you just have to not be starstruck, and it's easy to be. You hop on the ACC press conference every Monday morning this year on Zoom, and it's okay. Now we're joined by Coach K, and then it's Roy Williams, and then it's Leonard Hamilton, and then it's Tony Bennett, and then it's Jim Boeheim. You're just like, whoa. Like you're just running the gauntlet for like 10 minutes. And I didn't even hop on most of them. I would only hop on, say the team Syracuse was playing that week. But even still, you're just like asking questions to these legends. And it's easy to just be like, whoa. But you gotta do your job.
Oh, 100%. And well, I like that you're saying that I just need to do my job. It's a cool experience to say the least, to talk to some of these guys, but at the end of the day, they're just normal people in the flesh. Like literally, they're no different than you are. They just have better credentials and a cooler resume and maybe some better experiences than us. But at the end of the day, I mean, they are just like me and you, the guy to the left, except, he's, got some accolades underneath his name, which is really cool. But doesn't mean you should treat him any differently. And I like that you were saying, like, whatever he said to me, you kind of like just brush off. It's not like he's attacking me really. It's just, it's how it is. He's being honest. You're gonna throw some shade at me. You're gonna throw some shade back, and it is what it is. And he gets some Twitter clout out of it, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, he knows how to play the game. He's been doing it for a very long time, like I said, and it's just part of the job. And it's really interesting. It's funny. I'm sitting in class. I wrote a story about their recruiting at the end of the year, and I'm sitting in class, and I have my laptop open, but my phone is in my backpack, and I see it pop up in the top corner of my screen, and it's a call from Jim Boeheim, and I'm just like, oh, that's going to be a fun return call, because usually if Jim Boeheim's calling you, it's probably to be critical, because we had done like a 30-minute interview a couple of days before over the phone. So I see that and I'm like, oh boy, that's gonna be a fun one. So then class ends, I pick up the phone and he's disagreeing and agreeing and offering his criticisms of a story I wrote, which is fine. Again, well within his right. And then he goes on radio and he's talking about your article and what you got wrong and what he thinks you got wrong, and whatnot. And that's just part of it. And it's kind of funny to my friends who aren't in journalism, my friends who don't really, who are just fans of Syracuse, who are just like, whoa, like Jim Boeheim called you. And I'm like, yeah, it's like, whatever. It's not the end of the world. It's not a big deal. It's just how it is.
Yeah, exactly. And what I like that you're saying that, at the end of the day, I mean, everyone's going to have their opinion, especially being in the sports world, man. Twitter is a wild place for people that talk sports media, the athletes, whatever it may be. Because man, people fire shots at you like left and right, and everyone's got Twitter fingers nowadays and can hide behind a screen. But what I like that you were saying, like it's my opinion. I mean, it can be Jim Boeheim, and I could give two craps less if he doesn't agree with me. This is what I think. This is my side of the story. This is me telling the story through my eyes in this. And like you can say what you want, I'll take it. Like I can take the criticism. You can agree with me, you cannot. But at the end of the day, like this is what I thought regarding this, segment, article, whatever topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even really opinion based. Sometimes, he was disputing things that multiple people had told me, who are close to the program or close to the, the person who said it, or the person that it was about. And so, he's very aware. He reads everything, which is another thing I'll give him credit for. There's a lot of coaches who always say they don't read. Boeheim is pretty honest. Like he'll read and he understands. He'll listen to talk radio for better or worse. He will read your article. He will offer feedback on it. If he feels, a couple of years ago, we had a writer write a column about a coaching decision. And he starts off his presser with saying that playing X player at the center was one of the dumbest ideas he'd ever read. And the reporter just kind of laughed and was sitting in the front row. That's just kind of how it is. And it's funny. And in that way, you get that kind of coach in Jim Boeheim, and then you have the Syracuse football coach, Gino Babers, who is a likable guy. He makes movie references during Zoom calls, like in press conferences. He's like always got a story, but he's very good at saying nothing, not giving away any information. And I think, he will try to dodge any questions and he won't necessarily be as forthcoming with information. I personally think that most of Syracuse media would agree that, we'll take Boeheim and his occasional jabs over someone who isn't going to be as forthcoming. So we'll take the information and we'll say thank you after the fact.
Yeah, exactly. And it's adapting to who you're talking to, especially in media, because you're going through, being part of a college is a little bit smaller than being a part of, ESPN, action, sports, whatever it may be, where you have to focus on a lot of things rather than when you're doing one thing, you're only talking to a couple people or the coaches in that college. So it's not as big of a spectrum as it would be on a different kind of platform. So I want to go into what are your plans for graduating college when it's all said and done? Because you said you're graduating, 2 weeks?
Yeah, May 23rd is the big day. I will be graduating at 9 a.m. and then I will be watching soccer for a few hours that afternoon because it's the final day of the Premier League and Serie A seasons. So part of my job where I work at the Action Network is I'm a soccer writer. We're breaking into the podcast scene shortly, but currently a writer covering Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A, Champions League. So mostly European soccer. It's kind of where I built out my niche in terms of sports betting and whatnot. But that's the current thing that I'm involved with. And then we'll have the Euros this summer, which start June 11th, I believe, or 10th, maybe 12th, that week in June. And that'll go through mid-July. So I'll be doing some of that and helping them cover that. And we'll be doing some daily video and audio content to help, people be more informed about these European teams. So that's the immediate short term. In the medium to long term, I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to be. I'm trying to, work angles and, try to build some connections and applying for jobs in sports media, both on the broadcast production side and on the writing side. So a little bit of both. And then I also have some job applications out for political analysis / writing / editing, which I've kind of broken into a little bit more since I've gotten into college. Host of a weekly political talk show on our student TV station. So it's been fun. I'm not entirely sure where I'll be in 5 years, 10 years. I hate that question, but somewhere in the media space where I can kind of, like I said, gather and disseminate information. That's kind of the thing I love to do. I love numbers. I love data. So we'll see.
Well, yeah, you have to keep it general. I like that perspective on it because you're like, I just want to do something in media, whether it be in sports, in politics, in writing, behind the camera, in front of the camera, whatever it is. I'm going to enjoy myself as long as I have obviously basic parameters and applying those to the new job and applying those to life in general. Like if you do this, I'm going to be happy and I'm still going to have the passion that I did. I'm going to be passionate about the job that I am doing at the end of the day. So in terms of obviously Dabbundo, you're a big sports bettor, and I'm personally not 21, can't bet on sports. So this is the question that I want to ask you. What makes a good sports bettor from a bad sports bettor?
That is an excellent question. Understand. So the first rule of sports betting, and this is one that most casual people who are just trying to enjoy it and have some fun and, place a bet to add intrigue to a game, they bet with their heart, not with their head. The Phillies are playing tonight. I like the Phillies. I want to bet them to win. That's not really ever going to work. You're always going to have a distorted view of your own team if you're betting that way. And so you have to be honest with yourself. You have to really be able to separate kind of the emotion of rooting for your team, the emotion of, trying to win a bunch of money all at once, with the cold hard truth about sports betting, which is that really it's a numbers game. And ask any professional who does this all the time, and they'll tell you that really you're not even really betting teams as much as you're betting numbers. If a team is favored by 6 points, those things matter. And, a lot of people who are novices tend to bet favorites. They tend to think, oh, this team's better than this team, therefore they'll win. They won their last game by 20. So I'm going to bet them again. And you really have to just dig into the numbers. And so that's kind of the one thing that I've kind of used my analytics background to dig into numbers like expected goals and for baseball, expected ERA, fielding independent pitching. What's the team's weighted runs created against lefties, against righties? Is this pitcher trending up? Is he trending down? In college basketball, did team X just have a huge win? Because if so, I'm probably going to look to bet against them in the next game because the line is probably higher than it should be. All these little things you pick up in tricks and whatnot and kind of experience. That's the one thing. It really comes down to numbers, one. And two, you can't chase. You're not going to make $1 million in a day. You're not going to win $1,000. If you try playing a bunch of parlays, maybe you'll hit one or two and win, but then you're going to always give it back because parlays are bad bets. So like all of these little things you kind of pick up, but really separating your head from your heart and using numbers and using kind of analysis to kind of really read where the market is going. There's a lot of similarities between it and stock trading. I tell people this all the time. You're trying to read where the market's going to move on a game. Like you're trying to read whether a stock's going to go up or down. You have to do your homework on the company. What's their return? What's their all that, mumbo finance jumbo that I don't really know a ton about, but I can kind of see the similarities. So do your homework, right? It's gambling, yes, but it's investing too. If you're doing it right and you get a return on investment, if you're consistently being, true to your process, you have to, not to steal a Sixers joke, but you have to trust your process and how you're doing it. You'll have bad weekends. I mean, I ran really hot for like 3 weeks where I was hitting like 60, 70% of my bets. And I was like, well, I just know that the day is going to come where I'm going to go like 1-8. And sure enough, Saturday I went like 1-8. I won one bet. I lost a bunch of money. And like that happens. That's part of, being involved in this. There's going to be good and bad. That's variance up and down, up and down. But ultimately, you want to have a small trend up, and that's where you kind of make it. So, back on the horse tomorrow. Got some soccer and some baseball to look into, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, it was, I thought I saw a great statistic come out, and it was saying how everyone in sports betting, like the whole market made, a bunch of $1 billion. And they said, and I was listening to an interview. It was I think it was like an Impulsive podcast. And they were saying, like, do you think that they really made that money off of straight bets? I'm like, absolutely not. It's off of parlays, because the odds of hitting more than, I'm sure that you have some statistic on this, but the odds of having like 3 things hit is literally insane compared to one thing, right?
Yeah, I'll just do it. I'll do simple math. You bet 2 games, a 2-game parlay, and both are 50-50 to win, right? Now, in theory, that would mean the parlay would have a 1 in 4 chance of winning, but you're only getting paid out plus 260 if you win that parlay. If you bet 2 straight, like even money bets, right? That plus 260, the implied odds of winning a plus 260 bet are lower than 25%. So you're literally saying, I'm giving you money to place this bet. Like you're just losing off the jump. So the implied odds of a plus 260 bet are actually 28%. So you're saying that, your bet that has 25% chance to win, you're only going to, you have to win 28% of the time. So you have to make that up somewhere. And so any bookie will tell you that parlays, and then the more you add games to that parlay, the bigger the gap gets. So 12%, if you add another leg, well, now you're actually at like 17. So the gap keeps getting bigger. Your true odds of winning are lower. So you have to kind of factor that in when you're doing parlays, and don't almost ever do them. I mean, like it is, we want to have fun. So occasionally, will I throw like a $5 or $10 parlay down and like see what happens? Yeah. Everybody does that. That's like natural, but you can't like make that your main way of betting, because you will lose.
Oh, 100%. When I think that's really interesting, the way these books market is unbelievable. Every time that someone hits a huge parlay, they're like, all right, let me post it straight on Instagram. Because then if anyone's looking on there and they're on that same book, I'm like, oh, I'm going to try that. Why not throw $10 at it? And that's a lot of people seeing that. And that's a lot of $10 coming in. So at the end of it, that book's walking away with a couple, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in the grand scheme of things all throughout the year, just on people trying to do the same thing that someone else did a night before.
Yeah. And then nobody wants to post their losers, right? So you don't see all the losers. And I do that sometimes as a joke. I had a soccer bet. I bet a team to win. They were 7-1 and they closed, 5-1. So the market moved towards my direction, which is always a good indicator. Team lost 6-0. They got absolutely murdered. And it was kind of funny. I just tweeted out the picture of the bet and I was like, well, not my day. And then you have like a plus 300 bet that wins and you're like, got that read right. So that's part of it. But, you got to be honest with yourself, and you can't bet money you don't have. You can't, if you're down a bunch in a week, you can't try to make it all up in one bet. That's like a common thing during football season. Like somebody will lose money at 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, and then it's the Sunday night game. And it tends to be 2 like pretty big name teams. And then all the money will come in on one side. And you could probably make money if you just found out who everybody's betting on Sunday night and then bet the other way, because it's a lot of people who are trying to make up all their money from the college football and pro football. And they're just like hammering one side. And it tends to be the favorite. And then you just take the dog. More often than not, you're going to win. It's kind of funny. It's contrarian.
Yeah. Yeah. So Dabbundo, I need to ask you.
They don't build the palaces in Vegas for nothing.
Oh, exactly. Oh, do you think they make that off of everyone winning like $100 every time? When they win the $100, Vegas is like, let's go. Cause they're going to throw that all on another bets next week. And then they're the real winners at the end of the day.
100%.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So Dabbundo, I got to ask you this question too. So say the Sixers are playing, the Los Angeles Lakers, and you're like, man, I think the Lakers are going to win this game. Are you betting on the Lakers against the 76ers?
It depends. There are circumstances, in the regular season, sure. Yeah, for sure. And, even in, with the Phillies, like I bet against the Phillies more than I bet on them generally.
Wow.
Because it's just how it is. It's like one regular season baseball game. I did bet them last night. They got murdered. That was tough. But by Atlanta. But
oh man.
like for me, the Colts playoff game, like I loved Indy plus, I think it was 7.5 last year. And I was like, all right, this is tough because if they get blown out, like I lose money and my team loses. But if I can hit the bet, it'll make me feel a little better about the Colts potentially losing. So the Colts end up losing by 3. They cover the spread, they win. Like NBA finals, if it was like a game 7, I'm probably not betting against, my favorite team. But like game, if the Sixers win game 1 and like, I'm like, this line's wrong for game 2, I'll take the Lakers. Yeah. Like, it's just part of it. I'm not that big of an NBA fan to begin with, but like if the Sixers are in the finals, like, of course I'm watching, which, could happen. But yeah, I can do it. There are definitely circumstances where I would say, okay, like I'm just not going to bet, even though I may lean this way. I'm just like not going to bet against my favorite team in the World Series or the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals. But in a regular season game, forget it. Yeah, I'll take the other side.
Well, I think it's really interesting how you're saying this because it's the same thing with stock trading. Like you were saying before, there's a lot of correlations between the two and a lot of parallels because if you bet on emotion and if you make your trades off of emotions in the stock market, you're going to lose money.
Or like a company you like, all that stuff.
Yeah, 100%. But if you're intelligent and
I don't invest much in the stock market.
Yeah. Right. If you think logically behind all the things that you're doing, you'll make money way more percent chance of the time. Now, is it guaranteed? Absolutely not. Numbers can be wrong all the time, but the chance of you winning or making money or the stock going up is way higher if you think logically than based on that emotional part of your brain.
Absolutely. And like, you can't, you got to separate it. And it's hard, especially when you're just a casual bettor who just got the DraftKings app in Pennsylvania and you're just turned 21 and you're like, oh, the Sixers -3 bet. Like, and then you're watching the game and you're rooting for your team and you're like, oh, wait, because they will win. I mean, like most bettors, if you just bet straight, if you say, I'm not going to bet parlays, I'm just going to bet. In theory, you will win about 49-50% of the time if you were just totally flipping coins. And you can't win betting long-term that way because you lay -110, you got to win 53%. But, if you're just looking to have some fun with this and you're throwing, money around that you have and you want to enjoy a game and you want to bet your favorite team, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying like, oh, that's bad. But, it depends on how serious you are about it. And so you got to kind of judge yourself what you want to do. Most people don't do the stock market like that because it's like it's seen as like more real money in a way. And you're investing and it's like, oh, it's companies and stocks and like it's more established. But sports betting can be the same way.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because that's
like the rise of day trading like that. A lot of that is just you're just gambling here and there, Robinhood and like all that stuff. Like a lot of that is just like people, sport. It's like sports betting, like the way sports betting is viewed, and like you're just throwing money around versus how traditional stock market is. That's closer to sports betting in a lot of ways on that sense and how it's viewed.
No, you're 100% right. And I see more and more people doing this, like sports betting for a living, like online. Like there's a bunch of people that literally this is what they do. And they make so much money off it. I'm sitting there like, you need a lot of money. Like it's with the stock market. If you don't have a lot of money at the start, you can eventually grow money. But in order to make it like a full-time thing, you need to have a lot of money to initially put in and start investing. It's the same thing with sports betting. I'm guessing,
you just buy Dogecoin, then you're golden.
Oh my God, man. Oh my God. Talk about hindsight being 2020. I wish I was that guy. I wish I was that guy in 2013 that, oh my God, created Dogecoin. Boeheim, did you see that story? How the guy, like, one of the co-creators of Dogecoin sold his Dogecoin to buy a Civic, which he didn't even buy because he didn't have enough money. And that amount of Dogecoin would be like worth $50 million today. Imagine how much he's punching himself in the leg for that.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah. I'm sure you've had the same thing on sports bets, right? When you're like, maybe I should have went with my gut this time instead of following the numbers. That ever happened to you?
Yeah. I mean, it's a constant battle, I have my numbers for soccer and I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, that's just, I don't feel right about this. And it's a battle because, you have to be like, okay, well, how good are my numbers, right? Like the ones that I've kind of built to kind of project my own lines. Like, do I trust these enough to like go against the market? And I generally do. But there are definitely times where I'm just like, I don't want to bet this team. Like, I think they've quit, or I think there's, this player's out and he means more than the market thinks, or and that's happened. Yeah, it happened yesterday. I was looking at Aston Villa, Manchester United, and I was like, I show some value on Villa, but Villa's best player was out, and United put out a pretty strong team, and they've been playing much better lately. So I was like, I'm just not going to bet Villa. And then they ended up losing. So it was good that I didn't. So there's a give and take.
Yeah, I'm sure. And that goes for like anything. Like there's duality to everything in life. But I'm sure that like when you started that you weren't nearly as good as you are now in the sports betting world. Like over time, if you continuously do something like you analyze numbers, you will become better at analyzing numbers, and the percentage of win will be in theory greater.
Right. And like you said, there's ups and downs, but generally speaking, like, it's about gathering information, seeing certain things you hadn't seen before and then learning to remember them the next time they happen. And all those little things only come with experience. That's any job too. It's not even just sports betting,
Yeah.
With regards to writing or with regards to broadcast, like all of that, you get better at anything by doing it more. So that's really just how it is.
Yeah, exactly. So Dabbundo, we're almost out of time here. So I want to ask you the question that I ask all the guests here. And what would be one piece of wisdom to pass on to the listeners out there?
Follow your passions. There's a famous quote from Martin Luther King about like, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And that can be spun a lot of different ways. And for me, and it's a political quote, obviously, but things that matter to you can be different than things that matter to somebody else. And you really need to be able to follow what you love, what you want to do, what makes you happy. Because life is too short to do things you don't enjoy. And maybe there's like a short-term pain for like, you're going through a job you may not love to get a job you really love, and that's fine. But you really always should have like an idea of what you're working towards and what matters to you and how that makes you happy, because that's really all we're here for. So trying to, push for things that matter. And like, from a political point of view, there are those things that matter to me too. And from a sports point of view and, what I'm interested in and whatnot, telling people stories is what matters to me. So that's what I do.
Follow your passions. Make sure to get through those little pains so you can follow your passion later in life. Keep it in the back of your head because one day it'll all work out, and happiness is at the end of the day the thing that matters the most. Guys, that's it for another episode of the Ronan Bell Show. Dabbundo, man, this has been a pleasure. Is there anything that you want to plug?
Yeah, go read my work at the Daily Orange, dailyorange.com. I covered sports for the last 4 years here. You can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Dabbundo for all kinds of sports takes, whatnot, some jokes maybe. And then actionnetwork.com if you like soccer and you're interested in soccer at all, go read my work. Put a lot of work into kind of, analyzing matchups and whatnot. And so appreciate all the readership.
Go follow it. Guy's great at what he does. At the end of the day, hard work pays off. Dabbundo, I can't wait to see what happens in the future, man. So guys, go hit my follow button as well. Follow this podcast on Spotify. Follow me on Instagram. Do whatever you want, honestly. I don't really care at this point. If you like this, give it a 5-star rating if this is a good podcast. If not, give it a 1-star rating. I thought it was really good, to be honest. But if you don't, it's your opinion. I could really, at the end of the day, it's your opinion. Respect it. But guys, thanks for tuning in. Have a good rest of your day. Hope you're getting through whatever you're getting through. And as always, y'all just keep on keeping on.